These are real 911 calls, disturbing, mysterious, and true. Each story will send chills down your spine and slowly drift you into sleep. This story is completely free. We don't put any ads, which means we don't earn anything from these videos. All we ask is one small favor. Please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. It's free for you, but it gives us the motivation to keep making more real police stories every night. Also, tell us in the comments which city are you watching from and what time is it right now. We love reading your messages. Now, let's begin the story. Story number 1. I was working nights out of a small city department off the interstate flat farmland, giving way to billboards and asphalt. My call sign was 2 Adam 23. It was late fall, maybe 40 degrees, mist sticking to everything. Dispatch put out a 911 hang-up at the Liberty Motor Lodge off exit 14. Mapping software pinned it to room 213, second floor exterior door, northwest stairwell. Dos a 23 copy, en route. We get hang-ups constantly. Pocket dials. Kids cheeking a phone. Landline hiccups when the motel switchboard burps. Most of those calls end with us smiling at somebody through a chain lock, but 213 kept calling back. 4 hang-ups in 6 minutes. Then an open line operator noted faint audio, television, male voice, too muffled to make out. When she called back, the line rang twice and then dropped with an empty click. 2A23. That room's supposed to be out of service, our dispatcher added. Clerk says no one checked in there all week. They've got the phone unplugged. That nudged it up a notch for me. I killed my lights 2 buildings away and rolled in quiet. The Liberty Motor Lodge sits like it was put down in a hurry and never moved again. 2 floors of rooms facing an ocean of parking, walkway rails painted a patient brown. Office in the corner, vending machines rattling with loose coins. I let the wipers squeak once and shut the car off. My radio was on the lower edge of comfortable. There's a hum to a motel parking lot at that hour, engines cooling. The heater units doing their small battles behind closed curtains, semis ticking. You feel your breath a little. Inside the office, the night clerk, a woman in her 50s named Penny, slid her glasses up and gave me that apologetic smile clerks give when they've become a conduit for someone else's weirdness. "You're here for 213, she said, not asking. "Ma'am." "How many times did they call?" She tapped her screen, older property management software, windowed blue and gray, the cursor taking its time. 4 times. 2 hang-ups, 2 open lines. It's showing extension 213. You said the phone is unplugged. It is, I swear. We're not renting that one right now. She lowered her voice like the room might hear. "We've been shampooing carpet up there. Something spilled. Anyone with a key?" "Just me and Mike. He's maintenance. He went home at 9. She held up the master key card on a plastic coil. "I don't like going up there late." "You going alone?" I nodded. "If I need another unit, I'll call." "Keep the line open with dispatch?" "Of course." I gave my location over the air and started up the stairwell. You hear 2 sounds when you climb those concrete stairs. The hollow drum of your footfalls and the line of your own breathing. The second floor walkway faced the highway, a slow river of red and white in the distance, room numbers in brass ovals, worn by fingers. 209, 211, 213. There's a way doors look when a room has had company all night. The curtains sit just so, pulled a careful inch. The strip of light under the door has a warmth to it, a rhythm. 213 didn't look like that. Curtains were shut too tight, like they'd been pulled and then pressed. The light under the door was cold and even. I put the back of my hand to the door. It didn't feel anything except like a door. No vibration, no television hum, just a quiet that wasn't empty. "Sheriff's office?" I called, even though I'm city habit. "It's the police. If you called 911, I need you to answer me." I listened. Then I knocked. Another pause. It's the kind of pause where your mouth gets dry, not because you're scared, but because your body is doing the math of what happens next. I slid the keycard down, slow. It green-lit, but the door only opened 3 inches and thumped to a stop. That little chain latch, one of the ones that swing, was in place from the inside. I leaned into the gap. "Police?" I said again, keeping my voice low enough to be heard without sounding like I was forcing it anywhere. I can see the chain. If anyone is in there, I need you to come to the door. No answer. I waited a long count. I reached my fingers through and swung the bar. Sometimes you can catch the base with a pen or your key and lever it. This one gave like it had been done before. The door opened into a dark room that smelled faintly of carpet cleaner and hot dust. I flipped the light. The bed was stripped, mattress bare, a plastic sheet under it, corners squared like the person who'd made it cared about square corners. The TV was on, but only showing static, not snow, exactly, but a low gray smear that moved like fog. The remote sat face down on the dresser, red light lit anyway. The landline was on the nightstand, beige, its curly cord tucked like a sleeping thing. The phone line, thin, clear, was coiled and taped to itself, not plugged into the wall. I said, "Hello?" one more time, because sometimes people really need you to say it 3 times to believe you're not here to catch them out. I cleared the room the way you clear rooms when you also want to give the room time to reveal itself. Bathroom door open, shower curtain pulled aside. Closet empty. No signs of a struggle or a party. No cup rings, no tray. The window lock was set. I keyed my mic. 2. A 23. I'm 97, with 213. Door was latched from the inside. Room looks empty. TV's on. Phone is disconnected. Dispatch came back, a hitch in the operator's voice. "Copy. We're still getting open line audio from that number right now." I looked at the phone. Beige. Innocent. I could hear nothing except the TV's soft hiss and the heater unit's slow, off-kilter rattle. From 213? It's displaying that extension. On the line I can hear. Hang on. A pause. Then the voice changed, like she'd leaned closer to her headphones. "I can hear your radio, your traffic. I can hear you talking. I don't spook easy. You work nights, things overlap. There are loops, feedback happens. But having dispatch report, in that even tone they practice, that she can hear me speak when I haven't said the words yet, that's a different sort of attention." I turned my radio down a notch. My voice sounded strange in the room, even to me. "Say again, you can hear me in 213? I can hear you. And I can hear the heater," she said, the professionalism holding. "There's a clink sound every 7 seconds. It's pretty distinct." I looked at the heater. Every 7 seconds it gave a small click as the fan shimmied against its frame. You only notice that kind of rhythm if you've been listening to the same room too long. I walked to the phone. The line wasn't plugged into the wall. The port on the base had that little dust ring you get when a plug hasn't been seated in months. I picked the handset up anyway. You get used to the sound of dead air. It isn't really dead. It has weight. This handset had weight. It had a room to it. It sounded like breathing from under a blanket. I held it away from my face and looked at it like you look at a dumb animal you still respect. Then I pressed 9. Out of habit, to get an outside line. The keypad didn't light. No dial tone. I pressed 0. Nothing. I placed it back. "Dispatch," I said. "If you're still hearing audio from 213, can you patch me?" There was a long beat. 2. A 23. The line just dropped. "I'm calling it back." The room remained what it was. Lighted, static glow. I counted to 6. The phone on the nightstand rang. "I will tell you there are sounds that find a place in your head. Measure it and keep it." That ring was 1. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't surprise me. It just rang like it knew it would be answered. I picked it up. "Police," I said, keeping the word gentle. On the other end was the operator I'd been talking to, but quieter somehow, like she was sitting at the bottom of a swimming pool. "Is this 213? She asked, even though she knew. "This is 2. A 23 and 213, I said. "What are you getting?" "I'm getting... Okay, listen." She held the receiver near her monitor on her end. Through the hiss, I heard my own footsteps from a minute ago, me crossing the hallway outside the room and pausing, the small friction my vest makes when I turn. I heard my own knock. 1, then 2. The knock I just made, but further away. You're playing back? I asked. No, she said. This is live. The room didn't change. It wasn't haunted in the way people tell you rooms get haunted. It was haunted in the way grocery aisles are haunted when you walk down them after close. Everything in its place, no story to tell. And then details that do not arrange themselves any way you know how. The TV static got brighter for a second like it had its own idea. I unplugged the TV to cut one source of noise. The room's sound collapsed to heater clicks and the faint whir of the bathroom fan, which I hadn't turned on. I reached in and shut it off. Now it was only the heater and whatever the room makes when it thinks. 2, a 23, dispatch said. Mike from maintenance is on the way. He says the phone lines to that room are terminated in the closet downstairs. Copy, I said. I'll meet him. I checked the chain latch. There's a way a swing bar sits when it's been used recently. The chrome warms. The pivot feels looser. This one was warm on the base, cool on the arm. I filed that away and shut the door carefully, listening to the lock catch and the bar fall home. I didn't hear the bar fall. It just sat there, engaged, waiting, like it always had been. Penny met me halfway with a ring of keys, and Mike behind her, a big guy in a sweatshirt with the Motel's logo, jaw set like men set them when they'd rather be in bed. He led us to a maintenance closet in the middle of the first floor. On a plywood board was the heart of the Motel's phone system, old PBX, with labels handwritten in neat block letters, 201, 203, 205, and so on. 213's pair was taped over with electrical tape. The ends were snipped, tape brittle with age. Been cut, Mike said, tapping it with his knuckle. Pulled it after kids were prank calling. Haven't run it again. Penny frowned. That was months ago. I looked at the PBX, the way the wires bled into it in tidy pairs. On the way back up, we stopped by the office. The desk phone, the master line, showed its call log. 4 outgoing to 911 inches the last 10 minutes. Extension displayed as 213. The last incoming was the callback. The display said, answered, duration 021, extension 213. Penny's mouth tightened. We don't have a handset up there that works. I took Mike and Penny back up with me. 3 people in the room changed its geometry. Mike stood just inside and crossed his arms like he could brace the room with his shoulders. Penny hovered near the door, as if being polite to the air. The phone didn't ring again. The TV, unplugged, held our reflections faintly in the black. I went over every inch like a school project. Behind the bed, under it, behind the dresser. No hidden cell, no chargers, no Bluetooth speaker. In the nightstand drawer, a Gideon Bible with a page creased 20 pages in. The clock radio didn't even have backup batteries in it. Do you mind if I sit? I asked them, and set myself on the stripped mattress. There's a sort of patience you can do that isn't about waiting so much as agreeing with a place that you will listen as long as it wants to speak. In the quiet, somewhere deep in the building, a plumbing line groaned. On the radio, another unit cleared a DUI stop. Down in dispatch, someone laughed at something on a computer they didn't later remember. My phone buzzed a calendar reminder I didn't need. The heater clicked every 7 seconds. 2, a 23, dispatch said finally, soft in my ear. We've stopped getting the open line. I'm showing nothing from that extension now. All right, I said. We're clearing 213. Advise if it hits again. If you expect a door slam or an unexplainable cold breeze, you will misunderstand the kind of thing that fits into a day where your job is to know what rooms look like when nothing is wrong with them. Instead, we left. The hallway lights hummed. The stairwell felt like stairwells are supposed to feel. I stood by my car and watched a semi pull in, driver tired, his eyes on the road ahead of him, and then far past that. Halfway back to my normal patrol area, the radio clicked. 2A23, just so you know, the dispatcher said, voice almost conversational to keep it from feeling like anything. We got one more from 213. Open line. Sounded like the TV came back on. Lasted 5 seconds, then dead. I glanced at the digital clock on my dash. 3:13. I unplugged the TV, I said. and immediately regretted saying it that way. Copy. The night wore on, as nights do. A check the welfare at the truck stop. A false alarm from a storage unit. A cat that absolutely did not need law enforcement intervention, but once a month for about 7 months after that. Sometimes at 2 a.m., sometimes at 4:19, dispatch would note an open 911 from Liberty Motor Lodge, extension 213, and if someone was quiet enough, they'd be able to tell you if the heater was on that night, or whether the clock radio in that empty room gives a thin digital buzz right before the hour changes. Sometime the next spring, the motel replaced the phone system. I happened to be in the office day shift, dropping off a report, when the tech from the phone company asked who kept the old call logs. He said something about phantom extensions and crosstalk and analog bleed. He said a lot of things that made sense all the way up until I thought about a chain latch, engaged from a room with a door that needed a key from the outside to open it. I don't tell this to make it more than it was. I cleared an empty room. The phone rang. That happens. But there are places in this world where sounds have a memory. Some of those sounds learn your name, or at least your call sign, and repeat it back to you, not to scare you, but because they can. I sleep fine. I don't unplug hotel TVs anymore, not because I'm afraid of what they'll do, but because it seems like a courtesy. Somewhere, someone is still listening for that click every 7 seconds. Somewhere, at 3:13, a phone rings once in a room no one has mopped that hour, and if it's your job to go, you go. Story number 2. I'm a response constable with a county force in the south of England. Nights suit me less traffic. Fewer eyes. More honesty. You get to see places for what they are. This was a winter shift. Wet roads. That orange motorway glow you can never quite place. Control put out a call just after 1. 999 open line, landline, coming from a budget motel off the A road near a petrol station. Caller silent. Audible background. Possible male voice. Line disconnected before the call taker could engage. Control from Sierra 1. 4, I said. Show me heading. Received. 1. 4. Control came back, calm as ever. CAD updated multiple open lines in last 10 minutes. Same extension. Receptionist confirms it's room 27. He says room is out of service. He's on his own tonight, and a bit shaken. We don't get many old-school motels here, not like you see in American films. But you do get those 2-story budget places stuck to the edge of a services, doors that open onto external walkways, rooms numbered in 2s and 4s. This one was called the Ridgeway Lodge. I'd passed it 100 times and never thought about it. The car park was mostly empty, 2 lorries tucked nose out along the far hedge, a hatchback with steamed windows that told its own domestic story, and the manager's silver estate under the strip light. Rain needled sideways. I killed the blues before the corner and rolled it in quiet. You give these places the courtesy of a slow approach. Makes people less defensive. Inside the office night hatch-up, Kettle half finished the receptionist, a man about my age with tired kindness in his face, straightened. Evening, officer. Sorry to drag you. I've got the open line thing again. It's room 27. The line shows 27 every time. But 27's shut. The carpet had a leak last week. I've taken the handset out. There's no one in there. Name? I asked, out of habit. Graham. Okay, Graham. I'm PC Lewis. Show me what you've got. He turned the monitor, dated green and gray property software dragging its way across the screen. He had a tab for the PABX system, the motel's little phone exchange. Each room mapped as an extension. A log on the right side, 17, 111, 118, 124 outgoing 999, from extene, 27, duration 0 to 30 seconds. Then another log, controls callback, 125 to ext. 27 answered, duration 012, no answer on audio. You rang back and it answered? I said. I didn't, he said. The system did. It says answered, but I was stood right here, and no one picked up. I keyed up. Control, 1, 4, on scene at Ridgeway Lodge. Reception confirms recurring open line 999 calls from room 27. Room is supposedly out of service. Received, Control said. For info, we've just taken another open line from that extension. Call taker reports hearing a repeating sound, possibly a motion sensor light or heater. Faint male voice but inaudible. Graham handed me a master fob on a heavy metal ring. "You want me with you?" he asked, already halfway into his jacket. "Bring your key, but stay behind me," I said. "We'll be fine." We stepped into the cold corridor. The motel's external walkway runs along the first floor with aluminium handrails, motion sensor lights every few meters. They flick on as you walk, one by one. It always feels like you're being escorted. Up the stairs, our boots made that hollow, careful sound concrete makes. At the top we paused, listening to nothing but rain and the soft hum of light fittings. The first sensor clicked, then the next, a sequence walking away from us down the corridor. That's normal. They have a bleed that triggers the next one sometimes, but it set a tone. The sequence reached the far end, and the fire door. The closer did its slow work, settling the door against its latch with a soft thump. "Room 27's this way," Graham said low. "The doors here are the standard pale wood, numbered plastic ovals fixed, crooked by someone who knew better but didn't mind. 23, 25, 27. The curtains in 27 were pinned with housekeeping clips, drawn tight, no light under the door. The door itself was shut, and the security swing bar sat open. Housekeeping had looped it back against its magnet. Graham held the fob against the reader. It beeped low and green. He hesitated, polite, and I nodded. He pushed. Nothing. It was like something held it just at the latch. He pushed again, put a shoulder in. The door sighed open an inch, then farther, quietly. No resistance you'd note on a report. The room smelled like staying somewhere you won't stay long. The bed was stripped to the mattress with a plastic topper. There was a stack of clean towels on the desk. The PABX phone, a gray unit with big buttons, was gone. A square of darker laminate where it had Saturday. An Ethernet port and a BT socket were exposed, both empty, television off. Kettle on the tray. Bathroom door half open to the dark. I called out, "Police, anyone inside?" No reply. I stepped in. Torch up, beam soft. You talk to rooms as much as people at this hour to what's been left behind. Nothing out of place. No damp footprints, no smell of smoke, no suitcase, no charging cable tail. I checked behind the curtain, which is always the thing people expect and never actually do. The window was latched. A bead of rain tracking the glass from some leak in a frame above. Graham hovered at the threshold like the room might ask him to take his shoes off. "We moved the phone," he said, indicating the neat rectangle. "It's in the housekeeping cupboard. No line in here at all. Where's the PABX?" "Ground floor, maintenance cupboard by the vending machines. We had it serviced last month. Everything's mapped proper." I keyed my radio down a notch and stepped through an empty ritual. Bathroom curtain back, toilet lit up, ceiling acoustic tiles checked with the tip of the torch. You learn the difference between rooms that have had a person in them in the last hour and ones that haven't. This one hadn't. "Control. 1-4, I said. "Room 27 is empty. No handset present. No signs of recent occupancy." "Copy 1-4, Control said. "Just to update, we've had another open line from that extension whilst you've been on scene. Call taker reports hearing a door close and footsteps on concrete." "Possible you moving?" "We are first floor. Exterior walkway," I said. "That would track." I looked at Graham. He looked relieved but not done. "There's another bit," he said. "It isn't just the calls. The lights out here," he gestured back to the corridor. "They've been tripping in sequence like someone's walking them when there's no one out. And this will sound daft, the night bell at reception rings, and no one is there. Last week it kept me up half the hour. Then stopped dead when I stood outside with it." "Let's see your cupboard," I said. Downstairs, the maintenance cupboard had the smell they all do: mop, old biscuits, electricity. On a chipboard panel, the PABX sat, labeled with tidy numbers. Graham pointed to 27's pair. The jumper lead had been removed. The wires were punched down but not patched. In plain English, that room shouldn't exist in the phone system at the moment. "Control," I said. "You still showing 27 as the source of the open lines?" "Affirmative," Control said. "Our system's rebadging it as extension 27. We've even had a callback registered as answered at 27. Do you want telecoms notified?" Hold off, I said. We'll do a bit more checking. We went back out onto the walkway. The rain had eased. The sensors didn't trip until we moved. Then they did. Graceful. 1, 2, 3. I had the thought to outpace them, see if there was any logic to where the sequence started. I walked fast, almost off-duty fast, and the lights stayed just ahead like a cautious cat. Each time I reached the bright, the next one hopped on 1 second first. Graham stood by 27, cautious humor starting to return. We had a bloke last summer swore there was a kid running up and down at 3 in the morning. I told him we don't do kids here, mostly stag lads and reps. He told me I was rude. We comped him anyway. I checked the housekeeping cupboard at the far end of the walkway because I have learned to look anyway. Inside, spare duvets in bags, a wet vac, a milk crate of remotes with sticky labels, and the phone from 27 coiled fathoms of gray lead around it like a sleeping thing. I lifted the handset. Dead. That particular dead that has weight to it. No dial tone. The LCD was too faint to see anything. It had a bit of dust at the edges that told me it hadn't been out tonight. My airwave crackled. 1, 4, control. Another open line, same extension. Call taker reports hearing the same constable identify himself as PC Lewis's and ask if anyone's inside. Graham looked at me, sudden pale under strip light. I hadn't said that into any phone. I had said it into the room. Control, I said. When did you hear that? Time stamped 3 minutes ago, Control said. Call ended abruptly. Apologies. The call taker is new. She didn't want to cut across your on-scene. Did you say it on your radio? I didn't answer straight away. We walked back to 27. The door was, as we left it, propped. The air in the room was standard. The little fridge wasn't on. Radiator panel set to off. The only repetitive sound was the slight drip into the U-bend in the bathroom. You get it everywhere older than 10 years. Graham looked at his watch. Do you mind if I try a thing, officer? Go on, I said. He pulled his mobile and dialed the reception desk number. The desk phone rang downstairs. He let it go to the call routing menu and pressed the code to call room 27. We both listened. Silence. He held it to speaker. After 5 rings, a faint click. Not a pickup click, it lacked intention. Then room noise, mush inside a microphone somewhere. A breath. A shuffle that could be your own brain making shapes and noise. Hello? Graham said, uselessly brave. This is reception. To us, in the room, nothing changed. On his speaker, there was a sound like a corridor door closing, far away. Then the tone came back as if the line had returned to ringing, a half ring in, and the call cleared itself. We just stood, 2 men in an empty room full of clean towels and a bed that ought to get used by someone else's afternoon. If there was a phone in here, I'd say you've got a sticky hook switch, I said finally, or crosstalk on the board. There isn't one, he said. He scooped the room key back into his palm, restless. Is there anything else you can check? We went back to the front and looked at the CCTV. Old DVR, timer inset bottom right. Cameras for the lobby. The car park. The upstairs walkway. The stairwell. The timestamp on the top left read 1:35 when my car nose came into the car park. We scrubbed back 2 minutes and watched. Nothing. Scrubbed forward 10 and saw the 2 of us walk up the stairs, my high V's reflecting full moon. We counted the walkway lights tripping as we went 3, 5, 7, until we reached 27 and stopped. Normal. Then, on the bottom camera, looking at the night hatch, we watched the bell button depress itself at 1 hour, 39 minutes and 12 seconds. The hatch bell sounded, a polite ding in the footage. In the room with us, the bell was silent. On the recording, it rang with its own perfect little purpose. I looked up. My instinct said, check the timestamp settings. Graham, when did the clocks change? I asked. End of October, he said. We forgot to change this bugger for a week after, if that's what you mean. That would explain footage that looks shifted by an hour, but not a bell pressing itself. I went out to the hatch and stared at the button. It had a little worn circle around it where fingers had found it for years. The air didn't feel different because air never does. Control, I said. Just to log. We've got anomalies on CCTV bell activation with no one present on camera. We're going to put it down to system issues at this stage. No offenses, no person seen. Received, 1-4, Control said. For info, BT have flagged your earlier calls as unverified location from analog extension mapping. Not uncommon. We took another walk of the floor. This time, at the far end beyond 27, we stood with the fire door cracked. You can feel weather in those gaps, wind like a living thing. Down the stairs, a fox ghosted the car park edge, stopped at the skip, glanced at us, dismissed us like an old custom, and was gone. The sensor lights tripped back down the line like a polite usher again. Somewhere a tap knocked once, like a knuckle. At the top of the stairs, my radio gave a burst of that weird not voice you get when someone's keyed and held and changed their mind. Then Control. 1-4. Last for the log. We've had no further open lines since 1:30. 1. Are you happy to close? Let's do one more thing, I said. And to Graham. Can you lock 27 and leave it be? If it rings, don't answer. If the bell goes, just note the time. Can you lock 27 and leave it be? He nodded. We shut the door. He swiped the fob. The handle gave its little mechanical protest and settled. He kept the key in his hand. If you want to see something odd, he said, watch this. He stood still for a count of 10. The walkway lights, which had all gone dark, flicked on one by one from the far end towards us. Not in response to any movement we could see. They reached us, lit us, paused, and went out. He grimaced. They've been doing that for a week. I called the bloke who fitted them. He says it's interference, the old wiring in this place. Might be. It still walks you up some nights. I cleared off the log. Control. 1-4. Nothing more evident. Advice to premises. Closing CAD. Thanks 1-4, Control said. Good night. Halfway back to the bypass, my phone buzzed with a withheld number. I don't pick personal calls on duty unless I must. It stopped. Immediately, Control. 1-4. Apologies. Last update from the motel. Reception reporting night bell rang 3 times in succession. No one at hatch. He's happy now. Wants it recorded. I turned the car at the roundabout and watched my headlights paint the verge and then leave it behind. I didn't go back. Sometimes you let a place have an hour to itself. I did hear later 2 months, a telecoms engineer came out and replaced the PABX. The new system had a digital log. Graham kept a little notebook by the till and wrote when the bell rang, when the walkway lights walked, when phones made themselves known. He stopped writing after a while. He said it felt like feeding a thing. He learned to hum quietly when the lights started walking by themselves, said it made it a little less like the building was trying to catch him up. If you expect a twist, there isn't one. We didn't find anyone hiding in a cupboard. We didn't find a rogue handset stuffed in a laundry bag. The call logs said what they said. The CCTV recorded a polite little ding more diligent than anybody. The walkway lights escorted us whenever they fancied it. A line in the CAD will still show OC no trace for that job. And you can put it down to wiring and old equipment and a manager too long on his own. You would be right. But on certain nights, when the rain makes the concrete smell like cold chalk and the rooms sit there clean and waiting, I can feel a sequence of lights prime themselves just out of my eye line, like a building that knows how to walk without you. Story number 3. I'm a constable posted to a detachment off the Trans-Canada in the interior of British Columbia. E-Div. Nights. The highway runs like a river through town, bruise-colored in winter, edged with shoulder-high walls of plowed snow. The kind of shift where the taste of cold sits behind your teeth, and every lighted window looks warmer than it is. Our Operational Communications Center, OCC, flagged the file just after 2 in the morning. 911 open line, landline, mapped to a 2-story motel on the frontage road. Call audio. Faint room noise, a recurring tick, like baseboard heat, and something that could be footsteps. Caller didn't speak. Call disconnected. OCC called back. The motel system reported room 120 answered. Duration 6 seconds. No voice. I acknowledged. Bravo 2 to 6 en route. OCC. My partner was on a separate call east of town. Backup was 20 out. The roads were dry with grit at the corners. I killed the lights a block early and rolled in without drama. You know these places. Exterior doors. Big blue sign promising vacancy and free cable. A Coke machine humming like it's thinking about summer. A coffee smell that's more memory than coffee. The night manager waved me in from behind the plexiglass hatch 30s, scarf over a sweater, eyes at that mix of tired and keyed up. Morn sorry. Hi, he said, automatically correcting himself when he saw my uniform. You're here for 120? That's what OCC has. I glanced at his name tag. Raj, is it? He nodded. I'm Raj. We keep getting. The system says 120. We've had 3 calls in the last half hour. I'm the only one here. That room's meant to be closed. There was a ceiling leak last week. The phone's been unplugged since. He turned the monitor so I could see the PABX log the motel's internal phone exchange. Rows of extensions and timestamps. The surety of numbers that insist on meaning something. 27, 218, 224, outgoing 911, ext 120. The callback at 225 showed answered 12 seconds. Any guessed in 120? No. We haven't let it since the leak. Housekeeping had the door open this afternoon to air it. I locked it after. I can pull the key log if you want. Key cards here. Record when a door opens. It's not perfect, but it helps. Pull it. I called OCC on my mic. OCC, Bravo 2 to 6. On scene. Manager confirms multiple open lines from room 120. Room supposed to be out of service. Copy, 2 to 6, the operator said. For your situational awareness, latest call had a repetitive mechanical noise at about 6-second intervals. Call taker thought baseboard heat. No voice. I signed for a master key card and went back out into the cold with Raj. The air bit. Snow squeaked at the threshold. The walkway lights tripped on as we stepped up the stairs, polite little cones of light that made the ice glitter like ground-up glass. Room 120 sat midpoint on the ground level. Door flush to the walkway. Curtain pulled tight. A metal D&D sign hooked over the handle from housekeeping like a token no one bothered to remove. Raj held the master fob to the reader. The light went green with that flat hotel beep. The handle moved, but the door stopped against itself 3 centimeters in. A soft, close thunk. Swing bar engaged from the inside. A deadbolt. 2, I could feel the solid resistance. We don't set the deadbolt when we're closing a room, Raj said, frowning. Only housekeeping would have been in there. They don't touch that. Who last opened it? I asked. He checked his phone. He'd pulled the keylog app. Last recorded entry was me, at 17:20, lock. Before that, housekeeping at 14:21. No one else. I leaned into the seam. RCMP, I called. Police. If you called 911 from this room, answer me. No voice came back. The baseboard heater to my right out in the walkway, not in the room, clicked as it cooled, regular 6 seconds between ticks. It made sense of what OCC heard. The room itself gave nothing. No TV glow under the door, no fan, no smell of anything more than old carpet and winter air. That's not unusual. It's not even interesting. It's just a line that then had other lines crossing it. Is there a connecting room? I asked, scanning for a second door inside. Only 118 and 122 on either side, Raj said. No interconnects on the ground level, only upstairs. I keyed the mic. OCC, 2 to 6. 120s chained from inside, no response. Requesting second car when available. And Raj, this deadbolt, you're sure you didn't set it? He shook his head. I'd need to be inside to set it. I had the door open. I closed it. That's it. We stood there and let the walkway heater mark time. It's odd how it will do that, give your brain something so steady it starts to register the differences. I could tell when the wind threw a different kind of cold through the corridor, because the tick shifted a fraction. Okay, I said finally. Given the open 911 and a locked from inside situation, I'm going to treat this like a welfare check with exigency. We'll try to defeat the swing bar. If that fails, we'll look at forced entry. Raj swallowed and nodded. I don't have a swing bar tool, he said. We used to. Someone borrowed it. Seen that, I said, and fished a length of elastic cord from my kit. There are ways to coax those swing bars with patience, and something with a bit of grab. I eased the elastic through the gap, felt for the bar, tried to lever it toward the jam. It shifted a millimeter, then slid back. Whoever installed this one had done it close, good for security, bad for my makeshift engineering. OCC, I said, 2 to 6. Attempting to bypass chain. If no joy, we're going to request fire for assist. Copy 2 to 6, OCC said. A beat. Then, also for info, we have a fresh open line log from 120 while you've been on scene. Call taker heard a knock and an officer identify as RCMP. Did you knock? I did, I said. No voice from me on any phone. Raj looked at me like he didn't want a story. We've had the bell at the desk do that. Ring with nobody there. I chalk it up to wiring. Wiring is the friend we blame, I said, because we both needed something that sounded practical. I decided to check above. Sometimes sound comes through strange routes, plumbing stacks, and transoms. What you hear from a room is from somewhere else. We climbed the stairs, our boots making that hollow stairwell sound, like you've dropped a stone into a well. Room 220 was directly above 120. The corridor up here was colder, the wind having more luck. The door to 220 had no D&D sign. Raj swiped. The lock clicked. No chain. Inside, the air sat unmoved. RCMP, I called. A habit that makes you feel better even when you know it's empty. The bed in 220 was made. A wrapped bar of soap sat politely by the sink. The Pabex phone was there on the nightstand, beige, handset coiled. The line to the wall was unplugged. It lay on the carpet like a thin little snake that had forgotten where it lived. The baseboard heater under the window gave a tiny sound and then nothing. The window was latched. The bathroom fan was off. On the desk, an alarm clock radio glowed 2:15. My watch said 2:28. Old clock's drift. I touched it. It was warm. A surprising detail given the room itself. I pressed the hour button. It didn't budge. Some are set at the desk, some aren't. Raj stayed in the doorway. We only open upstairs when we're full. No one's been in here since last weekend. My radio crackled with OCC's voice. 2, 6. We just received another open line from 120. Call taker notes the sound of a door opening and closing and 2 sets of footsteps on concrete. Then line clears. That'd be us, I said. We're upstairs above. I said it as much for Raj as for OCC. I picked up the unplugged handset out of habit. I wouldn't expect dial tone, and I didn't get it. But I heard something else. The room's own little signature in the cup of the phone. You can tell. A faint hum, the whisper of your own blood in your ears. I set it back. The TV was off. The remote had no batteries in the back. The housekeeping check card was on the desk with a neat tick for dusting and a blank box for vacuuming. We closed up and went back down. If there had been someone in 120, they should have answered the police by now. If there wasn't, I still had to account for the calls. I requested fire to assist with entry. Less damage is always better if we can manage it. OCC gave me their ETA at 7 minutes. While we waited, Raj showed me the night log he kept. A practical little script of his shift. He'd noted the first open line at 2:07 and wrote, heater ticking, 6 sec? In brackets. He showed me the keycard log for 120. It matched his memory housekeeping at 1421. Raj at 1720 lock. No entry after. Deadbolt thrown sometime after the door shut. The deadbolt shows on the log too? I asked. It does a bolt thrown light when you set it inside, he said. It doesn't record that here. Only when someone uses the card. We both look back down the corridor. The walkway lights down by the far end flicked on one by one, with no one there to trip them. They'll do that in winter wind. A moth, a misadjusted sensor. But the way it did it scanning toward us makes your neck think of footfalls even when you know better. The fire truck came quiet, they're good like that at 2 a.m. And 2 firefighters walked up with a toolkit that lives for doors. We briefed quick. 911 open lines from a room supposedly unused, door secured from inside. We made sure everyone knew the goal was minimal damage. There's a way to argue with a swing bar without hurting anything. A brave little shim, and an angle, and patience. They had the right shim. They eased it past the door edge, found the bar, coaxed. It took 2 tries. On the second, the bar popped from its notch and fell against the jamb with a subdued clink. We waited. Sometimes when you get the door a crack, whoever is inside decides their choice. Nothing. I nodded to Raj. He pulled the door outward, cautious. The room was what rooms are when the world isn't in them. Clean. Particular. The bed had a plastic protector over a bare mattress. The drape was pulled. A little stale cold sat over everything. The phone on the nightstand was gone. Raj had moved it, as he said. The wall jack stood empty, those twin little ports like a face that forgot its lines. The sound OCC had noted the 6-second tick was there, but it was from the heater outside. Inside, it was so still you could hear the bathroom fan not being on. The clock radio here, different model than upstairs, sat dark. The television was unplugged. The kitchenette fridge had been pulled a fraction from the wall and had a paper towel under one foot like someone had been listening to it rattle and wanted to make it stop. RCMP, I said into the room. Because you do. Calling out if anyone is here. No answer. I cleared methodically the little space behind the heater, the bathroom, the closet, under the bed even though the base sits too low. No damp towels, no toothbrush, no nothing. The window lock was set. The sliding track had some grit that told you it hadn't been moved in a while. The chain lay there against the frame, slack now, like it had always been a simple piece of metal and not an opinion. 2. 6. OCC came back on my radio. As you made entry, we received a brief open line from 120 that sounded like a door latch operating and a radio click. Duration, 2 seconds. Line then dropped. No further at this time. Copy, I said. I stood there and listened to our own breathing, the subtle close, quarters polish of nylon against nylon, the structural sounds of a building thinking about sleep. Raj exhaled for the first time in 10 minutes. Could it be what crossed lines? It can, I said. Old Pabex can bleed. A call from elsewhere prints as 120. A callback lands nowhere, and the system says, answered, because the switch thinks it did. That's one explanation. The deadbolt is the part that's harder to fit. He looked at it, the brass small and ordinary. I didn't set it, he said again, quieter. I know I didn't. It bothers me because I know what I did. We thank the firefighters. They left us with their card and a shrug that's more comfort than it looks. It says, things happen in buildings. We put things down to systems because it helps. They offered to realign the swing bar screws that had been installed too snug to shim easily. Raj told them yes, because it is good to fix things you can fix. We stayed a little, because it felt like if we left straight away, we'd be pretending the room hadn't pulled our attention around a corner for nothing. We checked the Pabex cabinet in the maintenance room, the same kind of setup I'd seen 100 times. Pairs of wires punched down, labels faded. The pair labeled 120 had a bit of older tape on it, like someone had made a change a long time ago. It's not evidence of anything on its own. It's just a note in a file. Back at the desk, Raj's bell rang. Not dramatic. One polite ping. We both turned. The hatch button sat there innocent and round. The CCTV for the lobby is one of those slightly too wide fisheye lenses that make people look like they're leaning. On playback, you could see the button depress itself. Or it could have been the camera wobbling because someone walked heavy behind the desk. And we had, in fact, just walked back there. OCC, I said. For the log, we had bell activation at front. No person observed in lobby on camera at the time. We're going to attribute to mechanical. No offense. Copy, OCC said, their voice settling the moment back into the stream of the shift. No further open lines since entry. Are you content to clear with advice? Affirmative, I said. I gave Raj some language for his own records. He printed it, stuck it to the inside of his log with a piece of tape, and put the tape on well because some people do that and it helps. On the way back to the car, I looked at 120's door. The swing bar sat back against its magnet the way it's supposed to when no one's in. The bolt was thrown back from the inside to the outside. Because there's no other way to do that. In the snow along the walkway, there were our boot prints and the firefighters and no others. I say that only because people always ask. Before I pulled away, OCC called again. 2. 6. Just a heads up. We got a very brief 911 from the motel again, this time mapped to the lobby line. Call taker heard coffee brewing. 1 bell chime. Then the call cleared. Manager advised no one in lobby. We'll update the file with your report. I looked at Raj through the glass, thumbed a little wave. He gave me a look I've seen on night managers and janitors and paramedics and cops, the look that says, I'll be here when whatever it is makes its next small decision, and I will put that decision neatly in a log, and this is how we get through. I went back into the cold, and the lights that don't belong to anyone. On the radio, a member in the next town over cleared a check on well-being with 1 occupant. All okay. A semi rolled past, the sound big and contained, going somewhere else. I watched my breath and let it go. Later, on paper, the incident reads so tidy it almost isn't the same thing. Open line 911. Motel, no person seen. Premises secure. Fire assist entry. No injuries. Advice to manager Pabex. You learn to be content with that kind of tidy. It's not denial. It's how you keep the parts of the night in their bins. But I still think about that deadbolt. About the shy little bell ring on the CCTV. About the way the walkway heaters called time 6 seconds. 6 seconds. 6 until a door opens, and it's quiet for a beat, like a room that prefers to hear itself thinks. Story number 4. I'm a senior constable with a highway patrol out of a small station in regional New South Wales. Nights suit the roads out here, heat stuck in the bitumen, trucks drifting through like slow weather, the servo lights making their own kind of moon. On a humid summer shift, cicadas punch the air like static. You taste dust and eucalyptus, and the thin sweetness of old mop water from whatever motel you end up at after midnight. Comms put it out at 112. 000 open line, mapped to a budget motor inn on the edge of town, the Wattle Motor Inn. Brick veneer, L-shaped around a cracked pool, no one swims in anymore. Call audio, no voice, faint room tone, a bell, and what the call taker thought might be. Footsteps on concrete. Call disconnected. Callback landed and showed. Answered on their side. 12 seconds. No talk. Comms. Highway 12 on, I said. Kopi Wattle Motor Inn. En route. On the way, I killed the lights a street early and let the car roll. There's no point arriving like a parade at those hours. The motel sits 3 doors from a 24-hour servo, the smell of pie warmers and diesel drifting. The Wattle sign has 2 missing letters, and a buzz you feel in your fillings more than you hear. A single ute was backed up across 2 parks, like it was thinking about leaving and changed its mind. Inside the office, the night hatch was down. The receptionist, 40-ish, gray singlet under a polo, a knot of keys on his belt, and a biro behind his ear, looked up when I tapped the glass. His name tag read Kev, and his face said he'd been awake too long to be spooked, but was spooked anyway. "G'day," he said automatically, then glanced at the clock and corrected himself with a half smile. "Hi. Sorry. You're here for the calls." "That's right," I said, keeping it easy. 000 open line from a room. "You're alone on tonight?" "Yeah. Housekeeping's done. Owner's out at his farm. We've had 3 of those calls in the last half hour. The system keeps saying they're from room 13. He waited for the beat. I gave it to him. "We don't have a room 13, he said. Relief and irritation in equal measure. "Never have. Not since I've been here. We go from 12 to 14. You can come have a look." He slid a ledger towards me, yes, a ledger, paper and pen, and then clicked the mouse to wake the battered desktop running the Pabex monitoring. It's the same story everywhere. A little window with extensions down the left, and timestamps stacked like fence palings. 13, 19, 112. Outgoing 0000, ext 13. Under it, the callback from comms, 113. Incoming. Ext 13. Answered. Duration 012. It was all so calm written down, which is one of the ways the night lets itself be believed. "You sure there's no room 13? I asked, going through the steps that make people feel sane again. He half smiled without humor. No one puts a 13 on a motel, mate. Bad luck and all that. We turned that space into the linen room before my time. The phone guys told me the system still has a 13 in it because whoever set it up in the 90s needed somewhere to park a line. We taped it off ages ago. It shouldn't be able to dial anything. Show me, I said. We stepped out onto the walkway. Motion sensor lights along the eaves woke as we moved. A polite ripple. The air pushed at us, heavy with a storm that might not arrive. The numbers along the rooms were the standard black plastic ovals, yellowed edges. 9, 10, 11, 12. Then a wider gap of brick and a steel door marked, line with a padlock. Then 14 and 15 marching on. That's your room 13, Kev said, tapping the steel door. It had the faint shadow of a removed plaque, the ghost oval of a number you had to know to see. We put all the spare duvets in there. There's an old phone point on the wall that doesn't go to anything. He unlocked it and pushed the door. The room was narrow, lined with wire shelving, and the tidy chaos of a place nobody sees vacuum with a missing wheel, hotel hairdryers in a plastic tub, coffee sachets, boxed up like ammunition. It smelled like detergent and hot dust. On the far wall, under a light switch that didn't do anything, was a single BT plate with a cracked beige cover. Someone had scrawled 13 on the plastic with a permanent marker years ago. The cable was cut flush. No lead, no handset, no dial tone even if you were the listening type. Comms, I said on my shoulder mic. Highway 12's on scene at Wattle Motor Inn. Reception shows multiple. 000. Open lines. Tag to Extine. 13. Premises don't have a room 13. The physical space is a locked linen room. We're checking. Loom 6. Copy, Highway 12. The operator said steady, local voice I knew from a dozen nights. For your info, just as you keyed up, we received a fresh open line mapped to the same extension. Call taker heard a bell ring and what might have been your boots on concrete. No voice. That tracks. They're hearing the world where I am and pushing it through some wire that thinks it knows which number it belongs to. I clicked my torch and swept the little room, if only so I could say I did. There was a sliver of something like old cut cokes tucked behind a shelf, and a couple of paper wasps retired under the lintel. What about your desk bell? I asked Kev as we stepped back into the air. That ring you heard on the call, was it the night hatch? He grimaced. It's been doing that tonight. I get a ring, and no one there. Then the little light on the phone flashes like there's an internal call, and when I pick up, it's just the line noise from out here. I figured it's the heat. Everything swells in this weather. We went back to the office. The hatch had a worn plastic button outside for late arrivals to press. Inside, under the counter, a black pedal napped in the dust-silent duress. It sends comms a ping if it's stomped. Kev's feet stayed well away from it. He pulled up the CCTV feeds on the desktop. Car park, walkway, lobby, and a camera pointed along the upper veranda that no one had remembered to clean in months. We scrubbed back to 1-9. On the lobby view, the night hatch bell button depressed itself just enough to trigger the ding. The sound registered on the camera's tiny microphone. Nobody in frame. The walkway camera, at the same time, showed the motion sensor lights stepping on from room 14 back to room 11, like someone had walked toward the office. You could write that off as one sensor triggering the next if you wanted. That's what brains are for. Do the lights do that a lot? I asked. Once in a while, he said. Wind up under the eaves gets them tender. But it doesn't usually walk to me like that. It starts and stops. He listened to his own words and shook his head. I sound like an idiot, it's just lights. Mate, I said. I've written longer reports on less. He laughed properly then, the sort of laugh that puts the shoulders down a centimeter. He poured 2 paper cups of instant and slid one to me through the gap in the hatch. The motel coffee had the taste of hope and burnt kettle, which is a flavor category all its own. Let's have a look at your Pabex cupboard, I said. He had it in a little brick room off the laundry, no bigger than a shower recess, lined with pegboard. The phone system sat on a chipboard backboard like a small-town white blocks with punch-down rows, each extension marked in biro. 11, 12, 14, 15. Between 12 and 14, a gap with 13 penciled, and a strip of old electrical tape over the termination points. The incoming trunk lines, hummed their small hum. "This is as dead as dead," Kev said, thumbing the taped bit with respect. "Telecom's bloke taped it when they put the new modem in last year. Said leave it alone. Legacy." Comms came on again. "Highway 12, update. We've just had another 000 open line land from the motel. Call taker reports hearing a sliding window close and someone say, 'G'day,' very quietly. Audio is faint. Do you have anyone else on site?" I looked at Kev. He raised his hands. "Haven't said g'day since you told me not to," he said. Half joking, half not. "We're the only two," I told comms. "And I'd say how you going if I was being myself." "Copy," she said, logging. We stood there in the little cupboard with the hum of the exchange, the smell of old mops and spider spray making a kind of hat over the moment. We listened like the room owed us something. It didn't. Rooms don't. Back at the office, Kev tried a test. He dialed from the lobby phone 9 for outside, the number for the motel, then the internal code to transfer to an extension. He punched in 13. The lobby phone beeped. Thought about it. Its little display said, "Transferring to 13. Nothing on the line but that dead air weight that isn't really dead. The PABX log on the computer registered a call to 13 with a duration of 05. Then, answered. No one had picked up anything anywhere. "Do me a favor," I said. "Let's stand by the linen room and get comms to ring back." We walked out. Heat crawled along the bricks. Somewhere beyond the pool fence, the pump coughed and settled again. We stopped at the steel door. The motion lights got bored and went out. The dark felt thick but not special. I keyed up. "Comms, Highway 12. Can you place another call back to the motel's last originating extension? We're by the physical space." "Copy. Stand by." We stood. The only sound was the late-night universe, one cricket that had decided it had something left to say. The loose sign buzzing its steady vowel, a truck gear change out on the highway, like someone clearing their throat. Inside the linen room, something clicked very softly. Not a phone, more like something catching a breath. The sensation might have been nothing more than heat dropping from a wire shelf. It doesn't take much to make a noise in a small space. My portable crackled. "Highway 12. We've placed the call back. Our system shows call answered by ext. 13. Call taker heard. And this may be nothing. They heard what they thought was your radio bleed. And a soft shuffling. No voice. No." I looked at the door. I know doors. This one had been painted 10 times and had a small scar where a different handle had once been. If you stood very still, you could feel cooler air seeping at the jam bottom, the kind of draft you get when two spaces decide they want each other's temperatures. "We're not forcing a storing cupboard," I said more for myself than anyone. "We're not going to find a person in there. We're going to write it as a system issue and tell the owner to get a tech." Kev nodded, grateful to be told something sensible. He locked up the door with a small, decisive click that satisfied no one and everyone. We did one more lap. 12's curtains hung properly. Pins spaced because someone cared. 14's bath fan burred behind the wall because someone had left it on. A lone mosquito bumped itself against the glass of the office, insisting on a point. On the CCTV, the lobby bell button depressed without a finger at 1 hour 23 minutes and 11 seconds, and then sat innocent. We could line that up with the PABX log and make a neat equation if we wanted. Before I cleared, I asked Kev about the missing room like a man asking a polite question that has nothing to do with anything. "How long's this been the linen room?" "Since before I started," he said. "Old bloke who owned it then had a prang out front, before the bypass. Took out the brickwork. Between 12 and 14, insurance job flattened the join and they decided to stop at 12 because you don't put a 13 on anything in the bush if you're superstitious or practical or both." He shrugged, an easy shrug. "I don't mind the linen where it is. It's close to the rooms that still get the old woolen blankets. You wouldn't believe how many old blokes still ask for them." I smiled. "I would." He printed me his call log from tonight and stapled it to a copy of the PABX dump because he's the kind of man who stapled square and lined his corners up. I gave him the spiel advice. Call your telecoms provider, check the PABX programming, consider removing the extension mapping for 13 altogether. He nodded and wrote, "Ring Telstra," on the whiteboard where someone had once written, "Top up milk?" in fat texta. As I was heading out, comms came through once more. Voice more conversational, as if lowering the tone lowers the moment. Highway 12, for your situational awareness, we've had no further open lines since 123. We'll close our end when you clear. Copy, I said. I looked back at the steel door one more time because we always do. The shadow of the old number was still there if you knew where to look. On the drive back, I settled the car into that easy highway hum and let the edges of what had happened fold into their spots. The things that fit the bell button sticking in heat, motion sensors tripping like dominoes, PABX with a ghost extension mapped by someone 20 years ago, that's all paperwork. And it's enough. The rest the way a callback can land nowhere and still list as answered. The way you can stand by a locked ordinary room and feel like someone else is doing their job inside it too. That's not for a report. That's for the part of your brain that likes to look at the world from the corner of its eye, and then look forward again and keep going. A month later, I stopped in for a coffee and a word at the Waddle on my way past day shift. Kev waved. We got Telstra out, he said, proud of having done the right admin. They pulled the old board and put us on something new. No 13 on it. The call stopped. He held up a little spiral notebook. For 2 nights after that, the night bell rang once at 1:13, dead on. I wrote it down and then I stopped writing it down. Felt like feeding it. Good plan, I said. He gave me an extra coffee sachet like a man passing a charm. I put it in the glove box and never used it. Sometimes you let a place keep the last word it tried to say. There's no ending where I force a door and find a secret, because buildings don't mind keeping theirs. There's just a line in a CAD entry that reads 0000. Open line, no person located premises, secure advice to manager PABX. That's the shape the night took on paper. That's enough to carry forward. Story number 5. I'm a constable with New Zealand police, posted to a small coastal town on a stretch of state highway that runs straight for so long your thoughts go soft around the edges. Nights out here are simple until they aren't petrol station pies, the low buzz of a southerly, and the sound of the sea folding itself back and forth like someone turning a page all night. It was late winter, cold enough to make the aluminium handrails on motel verandas sting your palm if you grabbed them too hard. Com Central put it up. Just after 111 open line, mapped to a motel in town, a 12-unit place out by the RSA, with an old neon Pohutukawa that never quite lit the same way twice. The call taker noted faint room noise, a repeating beep every 40-odd seconds, and what sounded like a door handle rattling once. No voice. The call cleared. Callback landed as answered on their side. Extension showing Unit 7. No one spoke. Duration 10 seconds. Comms, Kilo 23, I said. Copy open line to Pohutukawa Motel. En route. Received K23, the operator said. Steady like they're trained. For situational, we've had 3 in the last half hour, all mapped to Unit 7. Manager on site says no one's in that unit closed for repaint. She's a bit rattled. I rolled in without lights, coming off the main road past the dairy and the line of Norfolk pines. The motel sits low to the ground, U-shape around a car park that's always got one van that stayed a day longer than it meant to. Behind it, a strip of sky where you can smell the harbor even when you can't see it. The sign says vacancy in a red that could use a new globe. The office light was on. I gave the bell button a polite press through the hatch. The manager, Marie, appeared quick, late 50s, tidy. The kind of person who writes names in a ledger with proper loops. She clocked my uniform and put a hand to the base of her throat, like she was trying to keep her voice where she wanted it. Hi, she said. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry this is going to sound silly. It keeps calling. Unit 7, it's empty. Silly is free, I said. What have you got? She turned her computer screen, older property management software. A little PABX console window open in one corner. It mapped each room to an internal extension. The log showed 17, 122, 128, outgoing 111, ext 107. The motel called their units 1 to 100 whatever, because someone told them once it made the system easier. Under that, 129. Incoming, answered. Ext 107. 12 seconds. We took the phone base out of 7 yesterday, she said. The painters were in. The handset and the base are in the laundry. There's nothing plugged in. Okay, I said. Any guests report hearing anything? She shook her head. No one has called me. The ones in 5 and 6 are reps, asleep. The German couple in 8 told me the wind sounds like gulls. That's all. I keyed up. Comms, K23 on scene. Manager reports multiple 111 from Unit 7, which is out of order for repaint and has no phone connected. We'll check. Copy, comms said, unfussed. For info, last call had a beep roughly every 48 seconds. Call taker thought. Smoke alarm chirp. No voice. That was already in my ear, the single lonely chirp that only happens at 1 in the morning and only in units where you don't have a ladder. We walked out onto the veranda. The motion lights woke for us in polite steps. The southerly tugged at the shrubs along the fence and made a purring sound in the gate latch. Unit 7 sat in the middle of the row, curtain drawn hard across the ranch slider. The front door standard motel issue pale wood laminate with a card reader. A little hand-lettered sign said, "Please use handle, don't push door." No light under the sill. Marie held the staff fob to the reader. The lock gave the bored little beep they all do. The handle moved, but the door didn't. It stopped 3 centimeters in and thunked gently. The swing latch, one of those little hotel security stays, was across on the inside. She frowned. "I wouldn't have put that across," she said. "I haven't been inside since about 4, and only to check the painters had cleaned their rollers properly. They never used the latch. Anyone else with a key? Just me and my husband. He's home. Housekeeping is 2 backpackers, who are both in 12. They don't touch 7. The painters left at 3. I put my ear close to the seam. Nothing but the building's small static. The beep comms had mentioned came from above my head, not inside smoke alarm in the veranda soffit, letting us know it didn't like its battery. A chirp every 48 seconds. "All right, police," I called, tone soft. "The way you speak to rooms as much as people. If anyone's inside, call out. Nothing." That nothing is a kind of answer. "Does 7 have a backslider?" I asked. "Ranch slider to the car park," she said. "I can go around, but it will be locked. We close those when a unit is empty." We went around to the back. The slider was a double-glazed unit, condensation smearing the inside like someone had been breathing against it earlier and forgotten to wipe it. That's just how winter glass behaves in empty rooms. The latch was down. The security dowel in the track was set. I put my torch beam along the gap. No movement inside. Back to the front. The latch inside annoyed me. Not because it meant anything beyond inconvenience, but because it complicated a tidy conversation with the report. You can write, "Door was latched from inside," and mean exactly what you say, and still feel like you're writing something you're going to have to explain. "Comms," I said over my radio. K23. Unit 7 is secured from the inside with a swing latch. No response to knocking. Manager states, no occupant. Request a second car and fire for assistance with entry if we don't get anyone answering. "Copy," Com said. "Delta car is 10 minutes out. Fire is 15. For info, we just got another 111 open line mapped to the same extension." Call taker heard the words, "Police, if anyone's inside." Faintly. "That would be your voice." Line cleared. It's always odd hearing your words come back to you from somewhere else. I nodded at nothing. Marie looked at me in that way people do at 2 in the morning, when they want permission to normalize something. "Our phones have been weird since Spark changed the router," she said, face apologetic, as if she'd personally broken a system that worked. "We had the boys in to paint yesterday, and the power went off twice. Maybe the base stations remembered something. That's probably it." "Probably it," I said, grateful for the phrase. We checked. Her switch room, a brick cupboard off the laundry, where the ONT, a cheap router, and the motel's internal phone panel lived on a plywood board. White terminal blocks with pairs punched down. Extensions marked in biro. 101, 102, 103, 107 had a neat bit of blue tape with "removed" scribbled over it by someone who wanted to be thorough. Marie pointed to a shelf where a gray decked base and 2 cordless handsets sat coiled in their leads like sleeping possums. "No power to those," she said. Painters unplugged them because they kept beeping. Down the length of the veranda, the soffit alarm gave its patient chirp. It wasn't inside 7, but you could hear how a microphone might flatten an outside sound and make it sound like it came from anywhere. We stood for a minute. You can learn a bit by just standing. The building gave its own small notes: water in a downpipe 2 units over, a heat pump whirring in 5, someone likes to be toasty footsteps, travel oddly on poured concrete. The latch inside 7 stayed whatever it was. The second car arrived, young constable, good boots, grateful to be out of the station. We briefed him. He waited at the back slider in case anyone made a choice. I stayed front with Marie. Fire turned up in a ute with a tool roll that had an answer for most doors. We're gentle as we can be. Property damage at 1 in the morning isn't a gift to anyone. Before we touched the latch, I tried something I'd learned off a motel handyman years ago. I slid a thin strip of plastic, a slice of a drink bottle I carry in my notebook, through the gap and fished for the swing arm. If you catch it just right, you can push it back toward the jam. This one sat tight, installed too close, not enough play. The firefighter with a touch responded with a different tool, a little U-shaped bit of tempered steel on a handle. He coaxed. The arm shifted and then fell back. He tried again. On the second try, it popped. Not loud, not dramatic, just a polite little click of metal, doing what it could. We waited a beat, in case a person made themselves known. The chirp from the soffit marked the time. "Police," I said into the open inch. "We're coming in." The door opened onto the particular cool of an unheated unit. The smell of paint was there, not sharp, but present, earthy with fresh roller. The bed was stripped to a mattress with a plastic protector crinkling quietly. The kitchenette had its jug and toaster stacked like chess pieces under a tea towel. The microwave clock blinked 1:11. The heat pump unit had a green light off. The remote sat upside down on the bench. The landline dock was gone from the nightstand. The wall jack was empty. A little painter's tape still stuck to the baseboard near the bathroom. Nothing in the room looked ruffled by a person. "Anyone here?" I asked, as much for the report as anything. The words went nowhere in particular. I cleared, like we all do a geometry we could do in our sleep, slow enough to keep the room human. Bathroom sliding door was shut, the kind with a coin slot lock. I tried it. It was locked from inside. That made a line in my head and in my notes. I put a 20-cent coin into the slot, turned. The lock disengaged with a tired click. The door came back. The bathroom was empty, clean, mirror catching our torch beams and making them look like someone else's. The shower was dry. The floor was dry. Nothing lived in there that needed help. "Comms K23, I said. "We're inside Unit 7. No person located. Bathroom door was locked from the inside, but we've opened it. No signs of distress. No property left behind. Copy." Comms came back. "For info, we had a brief open line mapped to 107 as you made entry. Call taker heard door hardware and radio click. Duration 2 seconds. Now clear. No further." The firefighter looked to me. I nodded thanks. They left us a card with their incident number like they do. The young constable at the back came around and raised his eyebrows. I gave him the small shrug we share for nights like this. Marie stood in the doorway, careful not to be in the room, like it might hold onto her shoes if she stepped inside. "We had someone stuck in a bathroom once," she said conversationally, because people tell stories when they're sorting their nerves. 10 years ago, in Unit 3. The little thumb turn snapped and he couldn't get out. He phoned me from his mobile laughing. We popped the lock with a butter knife and he brought me an almond croissant the next morning to say sorry. It was nice. I don't know why I thought of that. "It's the kind of story rooms keep," I said, because that's what occurred to me. We did the small things a person does when they want to be seen doing sensible things. We checked the window latch, locked. We checked the ranch lighter, locked. Security dowel in place. We looked under the bed even though the base was too low for any person you'd want to meet at 2 in the morning. The only sound inside was our fabric and the faintest buzz from the microwave display. Outside, the soffit alarm kept its patient schedule. We closed up. Marie swung the door gently, and engaged the latch properly to show it would do it. She looked at her hand, like it might have been the one to do it earlier, and then let the thought pass. Back at the office, I asked to see whatever she had for logs. She had an old-fashioned paper one, and the PABX printout she could generate if she poked the right sequence. She printed it. There it was, 111 calls, then a callback marked as answered. After that, another 111 that aligned with our entry. It read tidy. It always reads tidy. I wrote my incident notes on a separate pad and put descriptions in that were exact and small. You keep to what you can prove. You leave out the adjectives. Before I left, the lobby bell dinged. Not the hatch button, the little brass desk bell she kept for day shift. It had a tone like a cheap cymbal. No one was near it. We both looked at it like it had elbowed us politely. Marie smiled a small, embarrassed smile. It does that, she said. Heat in the day, cold at night. Metal moves. Metal moves, I agreed. It's a good sentence to have at 2 in the morning. Comms chimed in on my shoulder. K23, no further open lines. Are you content to close? Manager happy with advice? Affirmative, I said. Advice to check PABX programming. Battery in soffit smoke alarm needs replacing. Secure Unit 7. We'll be available for any further, but we're clearing. After I left, I idled in the car park for a minute and watched the motion lights along the veranda time themselves out. They went in a neat bank of 4, then 3, then 2. The last one to go dark was the one by Unit 7. That doesn't mean anything. It just felt like a small courtesy, like the building waiting to see if we needed one more look. A week later on day shift, I stopped by for a pie next door and poked my head in. Marie had that look of someone who slept properly the night before. We got Spark out, she told me, proud, like she'd ticked something off a meaningful list. They said there was an orphan mapping in the system. Unit 7's extension still registered with the router even after we pulled the base. They cleared it. Also changed the set so callbacks go to the office, not the room. We haven't had any more calls. Good, I said. She leaned in, conspiratorial like someone telling a ghost story at lunchtime because daytime makes everything seem polite. For 2 nights after you came, the smoke alarm out there. She pointed to the soffit. Chirped every 48 seconds on the dot until 1:29. Then stopped. I started timing it with the stopwatch on my phone. Night 3, it didn't chirp at all. I almost missed it. Did you change the battery? Of course, she said, laughing at herself. That's why it stopped. Don't ruin it. We let the joke sit where it's Saturday. She bagged me a muffin I didn't need and slid it across like a bribe to not tell the universe she'd been nervous at 1 in the morning. I took it and said I'd keep my mouth shut. On paper, the job reads like a shrug that knows how to spell. 111. Open line no person. Located. Unit secure advice to premises. RePABX, divided by smoke alarm. No offense disclosed. It doesn't tell you how the latch had been across when it shouldn't have been, or how the microwave clock blinked 111 at exactly the time it had reason to, or how the small, repetitive chirp outside a door can walk itself into your head and set up a chair there if you let it. It doesn't need to. Files are for facts. The part that makes the hair on your forearm think about standing up is for something quieter. If you've stood in front of a locked motel room at an hour when the world is mostly being sensible somewhere else, you'll know it's not the big things that get you. It's the small, regular sounds that seem to belong to one place then shake hands with another. It's extensions that remember they exist after you tell them they don't. It's a bathroom slider that locks itself because a tongue of metal sagged and settled at the right set of minutes when no one needed it to, and the way that gives a shape to a call that didn't have one before. I drove away past the RSA and the dairy and the empty bus stop, listened to the clack of the pedestrian crossing countdown at an empty intersection, a robot talking to no one, and let it be. I've got no ending you can hold. Just a neat line in a CAD and a motel where the neon Pohutukawa decided, for once, to light all its little flowers at the same time as I went by. Story number 6. I'm a constable with the South African Police Service, posted out of a small station on the N1 where the road runs straight enough that your thoughts flatten out with it. Nights on our sector are big sky days turned inside-out diesel breath from the trucks, a distant jackal sounding like a child laughing, the electric fence tick of farmyards and lodges carrying further than voices do. When load shedding hits, everything around here gets honest. You hear what buildings sound like when they're only themselves. Control flagged it at 1810111 open line, mapped via the motel's PBX to a specific extension. Room 4. At a motor lodge outside town. Call taker noted a faint click every second like an energizer on a fence and a soft radio squelch. No voice. The line cleared. Callback landed and showed answered on their side for 6 seconds. Then dead. Control, Sector 2. Van on, I said. One hand on the wheel, one on the mic. Copy open line. Karoo Camille Motor Lodge. En route. No blue lights. Received. Sector 2 van. The operator came back Cindy on nights, voice smooth as a road at 2 in the morning. For situational awareness, we've had 3 calls in the last half hour, all mapping to extension 4. Manager on site advises the room is closed after a burst geyser. They're on generator on and off. He's alone. He sounds rattled. The motel sits just off the highway, L-shaped, face brick, with trellis security gates, and a blue pool with wind-blown leaves in it even in winter. The sign says Camille Motor Lodge and flickers in a way that makes you think about your fillings. Beyond the fence I could see low camel thorn trees making their small shadows under a big sky. The gate slid open when I pulled up, the motor beeping its polite warning. The electricity had just died, then come back again. The lights chased each other across the eaves like they were remembering their jobs. The manager was waiting in the office doorway under a strip light that hummed like old bees. His name was Peter. You could tell from his badge and from the way he said, "Evening, Constable," in a voice that had been in this town longer than my uniform. He had a bunch of keys that told its own story, and a face that knew how to be calm for guests but didn't want to be tonight. "Hi," he said. "Sorry. We keep getting those calls, hey." Room 4. "I promise you it's shut. That geyser popped on Sunday. We took the bed out and the phone out. I even put a padlock on the trellis so my painters don't go in." "Let me see your setup," I said, stepping inside. The office smelled like instant coffee and a mop that had seen better years. Load shedding stage 4 had hit at 1. The motel's inverter had taken over in that thin, patient way inverters do. Little blue display, throwing a square of light on the counter. The PBX cabinet was a beige box on a plywood board in a laundry cupboard, above a row of labeled towels. The extensions were marked with a biro. 1, 2, 3, 4. The little status LEDs were all dead because the PBX was off. They ran it through the mains and the inverter didn't carry that circuit. No power to the PBX meant, in simple terms, the extensions shouldn't be talking to anyone. Peter lifted a laminated sheet from under the counter. A call report printout the PBX had spat earlier in the evening when the power had still been stable. The last line before the blackout read, 058, outgoing 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, EXT, for duration, 0, 22. He tapped it like it offended him, and he was trying to be polite about it. "Who else is on site?" I asked. 2 sales reps in 7 and 8, both asleep. 1 backy under a tarp in 10, with a family on their way to Kimberly. "My wife's at home. I'm here." He swallowed like he didn't want to. "I'm not a scared person, hey. But load shedding makes everything sound like something it isn't." Control came through again, as if she'd heard him. "Sector 2 van. We've just had another open line map to extension 4 at the lodge." Call taker heard an electric fence tick 1 per second, and a sliding gate motor beep. No voice. It cleared. "We're trying callback again." I looked at the little wall energizer inside the office, a bright yellow box that threw a tick into the room every second as it pushed current along the fence. If your microphone didn't know where it was, it would call that sound from anywhere. The sliding gate motor beeped because I'd just come in. Sounds are lazy liars at this hour. They say what makes it easiest. "Let's go look at 4, I said. We walked the veranda. The eaves lights flicked on one by one, timing themselves like a well-behaved choir. Out in the veld, something moved the camel thorn shadows a little. Wind, or a small animal that didn't need us. The electric fence gave its polite little tick, 111, like a metronome pacing out the night. At the end of the block, a Hadeda flapped up from the lawn and swore about it, because Hadedas swear about everything. Room 4 was in the middle of the run. The trellis security gate was pulled across and padlocked. Behind the trellis, the wooden door stood closed. The keyhole glittered like a small eye. Water stains on the brick around the downpipe told the truth about the geyser. A strip of painter's tape hung from the skirting like a thought someone hadn't finished. "I locked that trellis at 5, Peter said. "I've got the only key." He took a small brass key off his bunch and held it up. The padlock was the kind you buy with more optimism than necessity. He opened it. The chain fell in a way that probably didn't mean anything but felt like it did. I knocked on the wood because you have to. "Saps," I called, voice quiet enough to belong to the place. "Police. If anyone called 10111 from this room, answer me." The only reply was the electric fence ticking and a gecko under the eaves doing its whispered laugh. A wind-blown leaf scritched along the concrete. We stood, listening in the way you can only do when there's nothing else to do. My radio hissed once, the kind of half-thought a radio has when someone nearby transmits and lets go. Control's voice. "Sector 2, Van. Callback attempt to extension 4 is showing answered on our side. Call taker reports hearing your radio noise and one knock. She can also hear the energizer click. No voice. Do you want a second vehicle?" "Negative on a second for now," I said. "We'll check inside. Log the callbacks." Peter slid the wooden door open. It stuck because swollen wood always does after a leak. The smell was damp plaster and the aftersuite of paint. The bed was gone. The mattress leaned against a wall. A microwave sat on the floor like a small television that had decided to get modest. The nightstand was pushed aside, the wall jack above it exposed RJ11 plate unscrewed, the little telephone cable removed entirely and taped back. The desk phone base wasn't there at all. Peter pointed to a shelf by the office where 2 gray handsets lay, coiled cords tucked under like someone had put them to bed. I cleared the room like it was a room and not a story. Bathroom. Empty. Shower. Dry. Ceiling. No access panel. Under the bed base, dust and a washer. Nothing else. Sliding window latch. Clicked down. Trellis bars outside. Locked to the frame with a bolt. Back ranch slider. Latched. The security bar in the track. The air had the mean little cold of a space that hasn't had a person in it since the afternoon. Where would a call come from, with the PBX dead? I asked, mostly to make him hear me ask it. "Only the lobby phone gets exchange battery," he said. "The room phones need the PBX to step it down or up or whatever." My telecom guy explained it once. I nodded. We stepped back out onto the veranda and let the door lie open to get some honest air through. Control again. Sector 2. Van. We've just had a fresh open line. Mapping again to the lodge. Extension 4. Call taker is... Okay, this is odd. She's written that she can hear you say, "Saps. We're coming in." And then the sound of a door sliding. She heard that 2 minutes ago. She's very new. She might be mistiming. I hadn't said that 2 minutes ago. I had said it now. Sometimes the night moves sounds around on its own timeline. It's a thing we all pretend we don't know, because it doesn't help to say it. "Copy," I said. "We're inside Pedwar now. No person found." I asked Peter to show me his outside junction box. Every motel has one. The little green or gray plastic DP, where the incoming pairs blossom into rooms. We found it at the end of the veranda, under a white conduit that had known a warmer decade. He unlocked it with a bent flat key that had lived on his ring so long it had its own groove. Inside, a tidy spray of copper pairs landed on IDC blocks, each marked with a number in someone's careful felt tip. Pair 4 had a small piece of insulation tape over it. The pair itself had been lifted off the block, cut, and folded back. No continuity to the room. If you held your head just so you could hear the faint hum of the exchange on the live pairs, the dead ones stayed dead. "It's been like that since Sunday," he said. "Telcom OpenServe. Whatever they call themselves now, they told me to isolate it so it doesn't trip the whole board while it's wet." I did. We both looked at the listless little ends of copper, like they had a story to tell, and were bored of telling it. Back in the office, the lobby phone, a heavy black analog that could survive a war, had a small LCD with call history. The last outgoing at 058 to 10111 showed from extension 4. Lobby phones get clever. They like to assign blame. The PBX would tag anything it thought came from 4 as 4. But the PBX was dark now, and Control was still getting mapped calls. The inverter gave a patient beep. "She's getting low," Peter said, tapping the box. "Generator's on the blink. I only kick it if we're full. We'll be dark for a bit until the power is back." The building did that thing buildings do when the last polite hum goes away. It reminded us we were out here, and the nearest other person awake was maybe 6 kilometers down the N1, in the cab of a truck listening to the same wind. In the dark, the electric fence sounded louder. The gate motor gave a beep from outside, when a moth became a person in the eye of its sensor. "Control," I said, half to break the quiet. "Sector 2 van. Any further from the lodge?" "Affirmative," she said softly, as if your voice tips to match the shape of a moment. Another open line mapped to 4. "Call taker can hear." "Okay." "She can hear your voice now, much clearer." And the tick. "She thinks she can hear you say, 'There's no person found.'" "You didn't call us, nay?" "Negative," I said with a smile I didn't need. "We're on the handheld. No handset at 4. PBX dead. We'll treat it as a system fault. Until Telcom clears it." Peter rubbed the back of his neck like he'd been wearing a hat for too long. "Do you want to see the CCTV? It's on a little UPS. We still get about half an hour in the dark." We pulled it up 4 views. Gate, veranda, office, pool. The timestamp blinked 1:17, then paused when the inverter sputtered, and the UPS took the weight. We scrubbed back to 1:5. In the gate view, the motor beeped once on its own at 1:6 with nothing near it. Could have been settling. The veranda view showed the trellis gates and doors in grayscale. At 1:8, the light over room 4 brightened and dimmed like a breath, even though the rest stayed constant. That happens when an inverter is handling load. At 1:9, and this is the part that stayed with me not because it was impossible, but because of how tidy it looked, the microphone on the camera picked up me knocking on the door at 1:11, 2 minutes early. It printed my knock right there, tiny peaks on the audio bar like a graph. I tapped the screen and looked at Peter. He lifted his eyebrows, and then let them settle, like he had moved them by mistake. "Ups clocks drift," he said quickly, grateful to have something that made sense. "Always a few minutes out." "Always," I said, obliging the line. We took another slow walk of 4 because doing a thing slowly sometimes lets you see what you missed doing it fast. In the bathroom, I noticed the condensation line on the mirror had a clean rectangle in it where something had leaned recently, a paint tray probably. On the counter, a plastic cup was upside down over nothing, which is how housekeeping leaves them. The room had its small smells, none of them human. The only noise inside, when you held your breath, was your own pulse in your ears, and the distant fence tick marching through the wall in the way sounds love to do. I stood for a minute with my hand on the doorframe, feeling the grain under the old varnish. People think this job is chases and cuffs, but it's often this. Agreeing with a place that you'll be the adult until morning. "Do you want to try calling 10111 from another room to see if your PBX is mislabeling?" I asked. Peter shook his head. "No power on the PBX. Only the lobby's live. If I dial out from here, it'll show lobby." If the PBX was half alive, then maybe it would throw silly labels, but she's dead. As if to argue, the inverter beeped again, and the office light dimmed to a whisper. The UPS on the CCTV chirped, and the screen went blank like a held breath. We stood in the kind of dark that's honest about itself. I turned my torch beam down to the floor to keep our rods and cones and pride intact. The power came back at 1:31, as per Escom schedule if you believe the app and not your own experience. The lights came back in a ripple. The PBX's little LEDs winked awake on the laundry wall and made their contented cricket noise. On the desk phone, the voicemail light blinked twice, then settled. Control again. Sector 2 van. Update. No further calls since 1:21. We'll keep the CAD open until you clear. We took that as permission to go through the motions we know. I wrote down what I'd seen and not seen. I used words that weren't excited. Peter printed the PBX call log now that the power was back. It added a line for 118 that we could match to Control's call. He stapled it to a piece of paper with his own neat handwriting saying, "SAPS attended 1:14 to 1:36, room 4 empty." Telcom to attend. He lined the stapler up, like a person who liked the last word, to touch the edge of the page just so. Before I left, we stood at the gate and listened to the Veld do what the Veld does. Be big and present and indifferent. The electric fence tick carried out to the road, where a truck's white noise became a line on the horizon, and then nothing. The gate motor gave its beep of readiness, then remembered itself and kept quiet. 2 days later, on a day shift, I popped in for coffee, and to see if the story had changed shape. Peter had a man in a blue, open serve overall up a ladder at the junction box, pair tester in his hand making that busy little modem chatter. The tech looked at me over his shoulder and said, "We found foreign battery on the pair that goes to 4. It's like it wants to be alive when it's not connected. Might be a cross at the street pillar. We'll clear it." "Foreign battery," Peter repeated, pleased to have a word he could put in the world like a lid on a jar. That's what it was. The calls stopped after that. At least the ones Control could see. For about a week, at exactly 1:08, the gate motor beeped once on its own. Then it stopped as well. Peter said he didn't write that down because it felt like feeding a stray. He said it with a smile that's a way of telling the universe you're playing fair. On paper, the job reads like a carpenter's pencil. 10111 Open Line Lodge. No person located premises, secure load shedding, advice to owner Telcom to attend. It doesn't say how the UPS clock wanted to be a few minutes ahead of our knocks. It doesn't say what it feels like to stand in a room no one's in and hear Control tell you you're already there. It doesn't need to. Reports are for facts. Nights keep the rest. If you stand outside a room like that often enough, you start to understand the small ways the world loops back on itself. Electric fences tick and phones remember old routes, and generators clear their throats at the same minute every time because that's when someone trained them to. Sometimes that small timing matches the part of the night where a call taker hears your knock before you make it. You don't make it bigger than it was. You nod, you write, you lock up, and you go. Story number 7. I'm a municipal officer in a coastal city in Mexico, posted to the night patrol that runs the strip of highway between the port and the northern outskirts. Nights here smell like salt and dust and warm plastic. The OXXO signs glow like small moons, and the cicadas lay a blanket of noise under everything. When the humidity sits heavy, every building breathes a little. Doors don't close the same, lights find a way to hum. Dispatch RC4 flagged the call at 211. 911 open line. Mapped by the motel's internal PBX to an extension for Habitación 24 at the Motel Jacaranda on the Libra Road. Call taker noted ambient room tone, a repeating electronic beep every 30 seconds, and something that sounded like a roll-up door moving once. No voice. The line cleared. Callback registered as answered on their side. 10 seconds. No speech. C4, Zeta 14, I said on the radio. Copy open line to Motel Jacaranda. I'm en route. No code. Recibido. Scatorce. Our controller came back Diana on nights, calm like always. For your situational awareness, we've had 3 of these in the last 40 minutes. Same extension. Manager is on site and alone. He says 24 is closed for fumigation and the in-room phone is removed. Jacaranda is one of those roadside motels with private garages for each room, little white roll-up doors, a red light over each bay that shows occupied. Discreet, convenient, and a magnet for trouble, if trouble wants to be quiet. Tonight it was dead, no red lights, just a line of white doors facing the driveway, puddles reflecting a neon hummingbird that can't decide if it's green or blue. A Chedraui truck groaned past on the highway, the sound climbing the wall and sticking. The night clerk waved from behind the glass of the office hatch. His name tag said Morrow. He had the thick keys of a person who opens and locks things all day, and a radio on his desk with the volume turned down to polite. Buenas, sorry. Hi, he said when I stepped under the eave. You're here for 24. That's what C4 has, I said. You're alone? C. My wife is home. Security went home at midnight. We don't have guests right now. It's slow. We're fumigating the back block. 24 is in that run. He pointed to the furthest row, the one under the jacaranda tree that drops purple flowers in season and leaves stains on the plier, concrete like watercolors. He turned his monitor so I could see the PBX software. The extensions were numbered by room. 24 flashed, like it had something to say. The log stacked neat. 1:30, 1:45, 2:10, outgoing 911 from extinct 24. Below that, 2:11 incoming callback to extinct 24. Answered 0:10. We took the phone base out, he said. It's in the officina. I can show you. There is no phone in there. Show me, I said. And show me your CCTV. He clicked another window. 4 cameras, driveway, office, the back row garages, and a fisheye of the little lobby. At 2:10, on the back row camera, the red indicator above 24 dead and unlit like the others flickered one time, like a yawn. At the same time, the driveway camera mic picked up the beep of a smoke detector or CO alarm, the kind of tiny patient beep that nags once a half minute when a battery is low. It could have been anywhere on the property. Microphones are Democrats at 2 a.m. They flatten. On a shelf behind the desk, a gray telephone base and handset sat coiled, a little square of dust where it had lived too long. The cable was wrapped and taped. I picked the handset up out of curiosity. Dead. The kind of dead that has weight. C4, I said on my shoulder mic. Z14 at Jacaranda. Manager confirms multiple open lines mapped to extinct 24. Room is supposed to be closed and has no handset connected. We'll check. Note that alarm beeps every 30 seconds on property. Copy, Z14, Diana said. Just as you keyed, we took a fresh open line mapped to 24. Call taker heard the same beep and a metal roll-up door move once. No voice. We walked the driveway. The garage doors were all down. Each had a chain and a padlock on the inside. You could see the hasp through the slat gaps on some. Habitation numbers were stenciled above each bay, 21 through 28 inches this row. At 24, a low wind drifted under the door and touched my knee. The little occupancy light above it stayed dark. Morrow fumbled his keys. We padlocked 24 because the pest control guys said not to let anyone in for 48 hours. They were here earlier with masks and a machine that looked like a baby jet engine. I aired the room at 5 and locked it up again. No one after. We stepped into the side corridor between 23 and 24, narrow, tight walls with flaking paint. There's a second door there, a wooden service door into the room itself, and a door into the back of the garage. He unlocked the wooden one. Careful. The moment he turned the handle, that faint 30-second beep sounded close, as if it had walked to the door to listen. Police, I said through the gap without forcing anything yet. If anyone's inside, call out. You can tell rooms that have had people in them this hour. They smell like skin and cheap aftershave and aircon. This one smelled like pesticide residue and paint thinner and old linen. Empty smells, tired and clean. No one answered. We opened the service door. The room was stripped in that careful way housekeeping gets when they've been told to see everything mattress up on its side, bedside tables stacked, TV unplugged, and turned to face the wall, curtains tied in a knot. The in-room phone was not there. The wall plate where it lived was open, 2 tiny wires capped and taped back. On the bathroom counter sat a sign in Spanish warning not to touch surfaces for 6 hours. The window was latched. The little bathroom window propped with a plastic wedge because the latch was broken. Someone had improvised and left it neat. The beep came from the room's smoke alarm, not the building ones, but a standalone disc that one of the owners had screwed up in a thoughtful moment months ago. Low battery. It gave a single chirp every 30 seconds and then minded its business. You can hear a beep that regular for years later in your sleep if you let it. C4, Z14. I said softly, almost so as not to interrupt the air. Inside 24 now. No person located. Phone base removed. Alarm inside the room is chirping every 30 seconds that matches your call taker. Garage door is down and padlocked from inside. Copy? Z4 Diana said, for your info, as you made entry we had a callback register as answered again. Call taker heard your voice in the background and the alarm chirp. Duration, 12 seconds. Then dead. I took the time to do the ordinary things. Bathroom behind the sliding door empty, dry. Under the bed base just dust and a lost coin. Closet clean, a spare pillow compressed into a square by a vacuum bag. The back door into the garage, there's a metal latch like a hotel security slider on it. It was set. The garage itself, when we unlocked it from inside, Smelled like the driveway oil and hot concrete and a whiff of pesticide. The roll-up door had an internal latch on the bottom slat that you could engage with your shoe. It was engaged. The padlock was clicked through the chain and the hasp. No footprints in the dust except ours. I stood in the quiet, counted to 30 with the beep, and let the rhythm settle me. You can learn a lot by seeing what happens between the beeps. At the 20th, the hum from a transformer down the road sagged a little, someone's aircon kicking in. At the 22nd, a gecko did its small bark from the eaves. At the 30th, the alarm chirped and reminded us what we were measuring. "Do you want to see the switchboard?" Morrow asked, voice low as if the room would hear us. "Always," I said. He led me to a small metallic box on the wall by the laundry. Inside, tidy punch-down blocks with each extension labeled in faded Sharpie. Ext. 24 had a note, temporal removed, and the pair for that run had been pulled and taped out of the way. No pair, no phone. The main line from the street came through a gray RJ-21 that hummed like something alive. Behind it, in a separate conduit, a bundle of skinny wires went to the garage. Intercoms each bay had a little buzzer that summoned the front desk when you wanted towels or more sodas, or to pay without leaving the garage. A little analog map that had made sense to someone who retired 10 years ago. "Do the garage intercoms ring the PBX?" I asked, reading the old labels. "Or do they go direct to your desk phone?" "Direct to the desk," he said. "They're on a separate little board. If someone hits the button in the garage, it lights a little number on my panel and I pick up." "What about 24's garage?" "Off," he said. I pulled the fuse to those two bays when the fumigation started. I didn't want someone to press it by mistake. We went back to the office. He tested a few intercoms by pressing their call buttons with a metal stick he kept for that purpose. Little green LEDs flickered on his panel. 24's LED stayed dark. The desk phone showed the last incoming ring as Ext 24 at 1:45. A fiction. A label stuck to an event that couldn't have come from there, unless the PBX had decided to remember a path it had taken before and apply it again because it was easier. "C4, I said. "Z14, for the log." PBX shows extension 24 making calls without a handset connected, and with the pair for that extension isolated. Garage intercom for 24 is off. We're chalking this up to system crosstalk until proven otherwise. No sign of anyone in 24. "Copy," Diana said. "We'll make the note. For info, another open line just came through mapped to 24. Call taker heard a roll-up door move, and then a bell, like at a hotel desk. Then the line dropped. We both looked at the desk bell on the counter, a tiny brass dome with a polite ping. It sat still, unconcerned with us. On the lobby camera, we scrubbed back 10 seconds. The bell didn't move. The mic on the camera had caught the bell's ping anyway. Some mics record the idea of a sound. They remember, and they play it for you. I took a walk alone down the back row and stood outside 24 again. I put my palm on the garage door. Warm metal, faint vibration from trucks on the road. The smallest tick of the alarm through the wall behind me. The occupancy light above 24 blinked once and settled. An inverter somewhere on the property changed load. A gecko ran, stopped, ran again. Like someone remembering the steps to a song. I knocked once on the metal slat. "Municipal police," I said, "because you always give the courtesy to err. If you called, we came. We're going to clear." Nothing answered but the far-behind beep of someone's microwave in a house down the road. The motel was a botanica of noises, each with its own small prayer attached. Morrow stood a few doors down, keys in his hands like a good luck charm. "This started when?" "Around 1, he said. "I was watching football highlights on my phone, and the desk phone made that small noise it makes before a ring like it takes a breath. Then it rang, and the display said 24. I picked up, and all I could hear was a small beep, and once, the garage door in 24 made the sound it makes when you pull it down, that loose rattle, but it was already down. I went and looked. It was locked. So I called C4 because the log said 911 had been dialed. I don't like being the only one who knows a thing like that. Back at the desk, he pulled a paper folder printouts of the call logs for the last week. 24 wasn't in them. The system had decided tonight was the night 24 wanted to be alive. He had scribbled times in the margin, 1:31 beep, 1:45 beep, 210 beep and underlined 02. 11 with C4 returned call, answered. He aligned the edges of the papers like that alignment might keep the night tidy. We waited one more 30-second cycle of the chirp in 24, and then one more for luck. The call didn't come again. The desk bell didn't ping without a finger. The occupancy light above 24 stayed a restrained, sensible dark. Do you want to try a thing? I asked. Call 24 from your desk. See where it goes. He dialed the internal code and 24. The desk phone screen read, transferring to 24. No ring anywhere. No sound on his end. The PBX log registered a call to 24, duration 03, then answered. Answered by nobody. Get your telecoms technician to reprogram the PBX, I said at last, getting us both to that useful shape. Remove 24 from the route until the fumigation is over. Have them check for crosstalk from your intercom board to the PBX. If you've got a spare battery for that smoke alarm in there, change it tomorrow. It shouldn't be chirping for days. He nodded, grateful like people are when you give them a list. He wrote Technico on a post, and stuck it on the monitor. He turned the bell on the desk so it faced away from us like that mattered. On my way out, I stopped one last time at 24. The beep was boring again, which is what you want things to become. My radio crackled. Z14C4. No further open lines from Jacaranda since 211. We'll close our side when you clear. Do you want patrols increased? Negative, I said. We'll pass by. I wrote the incident in the car while the cicadas tuned themselves and a stray dog trotted through the driveway like it owned the place because at night they all do. I kept it exact and small. 911 open line from PBX extained. 24. Room checked. No person located. Phone handset removed. Alarm chirp present. Garage door padlocked from inside. PBX possible crosstalk. Advice to manager. To call tech. 2 days later on errands, I stopped by in daylight. The Jacaranda was quiet. The rooms in that row were open to air out. A man in a polo with a telecoms logo had the PBX cabinet apart. He had a tester that chirped and whirred as it touched pairs. He looked at me, shrugged, and gave me the words that make the world explain itself. Phantom voltage. The intercom board and the PBX share a ground somewhere they shouldn't. It makes the PBX think an extension is off hook when it isn't. We'll pull 24 from the table for now. Phantom, Morrow said, pleased with the label. See? A ghost. The calls stopped after that. For a week, the occupancy light above 24 flickered once at 210 every night, then gave up. Morrow said he didn't write it down. Writing it down felt like feeding it. On paper, this job is nothing. 911 open line. No person located premises. Secure advice to manager. But if you've stood in front of a garage door at 2 in the morning with heat lifting off the concrete and a 30-second beep counting your breathing for you, you know the way little noises arrange themselves into a story, whether or not you need one. You learn to give the room the courtesy of a knock, give the night the courtesy of not trying to fill it with an ending, and give yourself the courtesy of writing exactly what happened and letting that be enough. If there is a thing that stayed with me, it's this. On the CCTV, the audio waveform showed my single knock 2 minutes before I made it. That's not a ghost. That's a clock drift, a buffer, a UPS throwing off time when it changes load. But I felt something like relief having a word to pin to it. Phantom voltage, clock drift, crosstalk. You can put those in a report. You can say them out loud at breakfast without your kids asking you if you believe in anything. And then, when the desk bell pings once at 2:12 on a night when it's too quiet and nobody's there to press it, you can tell yourself metal moves in the heat and go on with your round like the sea keeps folding itself over the shore without ever asking who's listening.